Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, what if the words you literally use every single day are being used against you? What if the language you speak is actually a hidden, high-stakes game, and you don't even know the rules? Well, today, we're unpacking some truly fascinating source materials that suggest exactly that. Take a simple word like resident. If someone asks if you're a resident of California or Texas or New York, you'd probably just say yes without skipping a beat, right? I mean, you assume it just means where your house is. It's just common sense. But according to the source materials we're looking at today, you'd be walking straight into a trap. You think it means where you live, but in a courtroom, it allegedly means you are a foreigner who just crossed into the jurisdiction for a temporary commercial purpose. And get this, by admitting you're a resident, you've just surrendered your jurisdiction to them. These texts claim that everyday legal language isn't just confusing by accident, it's actively designed to trap the unaware. Section 1. The Three Englishes. Okay, let's dive right into this. The source documents make a fascinating, if kind of alarming claim. They say there isn't just one English language in America, there are actually three. And knowing which one is being spoken could literally be the difference between keeping your rights or giving them away. So first up, there's street English, which is full of slang and constantly shifting meanings. Then you've got business English. That one's formal and stays stable over decades to help strangers communicate clearly. But the third one? That's court English, sometimes known as the King's English. The sources argue that attorneys and judges are actually speaking this completely different ancient dialect, where meanings remain rigidly fixed across centuries. So while the public relies on street or business English, the courts are operating on a totally different, highly specific frequency. Section 2. The Word Traps. Let's look at exactly how everyday words are allegedly weaponized against the public in a courtroom setting, starting with that word we mentioned earlier. And this brilliantly illustrates the danger the sources are warning us about. In street English, resident just means someone who lives somewhere. But in court English, a resident is a foreigner who comes into a jurisdiction to work. The text gives this really great example of a doctor doing their residency at a hospital. You know, once the program is done, they leave. The sources claim that by calling yourself a resident of your state, you're unwittingly declaring yourself an outsider engaged in interstate commerce. And that makes you subject to federal regulation. So what are you actually supposed to say? Well, the texts reveal that domiciled is the true legal word for where you live permanently. If you are domiciled somewhere, you belong there with the absolute right of residence. The sources argue this vital distinction is kept out of schools specifically to pull you into that federal commerce clause trap we just looked at. Here's another really fascinating comparison from the texts: the difference between a client and a customer. The source materials share this revealing anecdote about a paralegal who was accused of practicing law without a license. During her trial, the prosecutor kept saying she had clients, but she constantly corrected him, insisting she only had customers. So why did she do that? Because in court English, a client implies an agency relationship where the attorney makes the decisions for the person. A customer, on the other hand, retains their own decision-making power. By refusing to use the word client, she avoided inadvertently admitting she was acting as an attorney. It's like words are practically game pieces in a very high-stakes chess match. Section 3. The Dictionary Redactions. Now, you might be wondering, if this court English is so vital, and these definitions are so crucial to our freedom, how on earth did the public lose access to this vocabulary in the first place? Well, the sources allege a systemic cover-up, and it all centers on Black's Law Dictionary. The texts point to a massive shift between the 4th edition, published in 1951, and the 5th edition from 1979. The sources claim the 4th edition preserves the true, ancient common law definitions, but starting in the late 1960s, the legal establishment allegedly began systematically stripping these common law definitions out of newer editions, replacing them entirely with modern corporate policy. The documents outline exactly what was erased. Take the definition of a court of record. It used to have 5 distinct characteristics, but later editions entirely deleted 2 of them: the fact that the court must proceed according to common law, and that the tribunal, meaning the sovereign people, is independent of the magistrate or the judge. According to the texts, these elements were erased to hide the power of the true people's court from the public. It's basically conditioning you to think the judge has all the power, when historically, the judge was merely an advisor. As one of the course materials bluntly puts it, the 4th edition tells the truth about what a court of record is, not what the post-1968 legal establishment wants you to think it is. Now, just to be clear, we are neutrally reporting the claims made in these documents here, but it is an absolutely explosive assertion. The idea that modern law books have been intentionally modified to express corporate government policy rather than the actual foundational law, it suggests a literal rewriting of history through dictionary definitions. Section 4. A real education. So, if the language has been hidden, the words weaponized, and the dictionaries completely redacted, how do you learn the rules of the system? The source materials point to initiatives like Court University, which aim to expose what they call the corporate legal system. Their stated goal is to restore the people's court by re-educating the public on this sovereign, common law framework. They argue that the corporate statutory system is simply built on top of the people's ancient system. They can't actually destroy the true law. They can only try to hide it from you. So the crucial point is summarized perfectly with this quote from Mark Twain: "Never let your schooling interfere with your education." The authors of these documents argue that the public education system intentionally left you in the dark, kind of dumbing down your understanding of words so you could be easily managed as a person, a resident, or a client in their courts. They believe the absolute first step to true sovereignty is reclaiming the vocabulary. It's a totally paradigm-shifting way to look at the words we use every single day. Are they just harmless sounds, or are they carefully crafted legal contracts hidden right in plain sight, waiting for you to actually learn how to read them? The language of the law is out there. Class is now in session.